A 17-year-old girl was on her way to school but never made it. When police stepped in, they uncovered shocking details that led to the resolution of a case that gripped the entire nation. Every story on this channel captures a unique glimpse into crime and mystery. Subscribe for more tales that reveal the hidden stories behind some of the most unforgettable cases. Ellie Gould was born on February 6, 2002, in Calne, a small town in the UK. Growing up in a close-knit family with her parents, brother, and extended relatives, Ellie developed a love for animals, especially horses. Her passion led her parents to buy her a pony, sparking her journey in competitive horseback riding. Known for her compassionate nature, Ellie dreamed of studying psychology at university with hopes of joining the police force. By early 2019, at 17, she was in her final year of school with big aspirations for the future. Ellie had a gift for making friends, always striving to connect with others and keep the peace. Earlier in the year, she grew close to a friend, and they began spending a lot of time together. On May 3rd, Ellie had a relaxed start, waking up early as usual but knowing she didn't need to be at school until the afternoon. After saying goodbye to her parents as they headed off to work, Ellie prepared to visit her friend and waited until it was time for school. A few hours later, Ellie texted her friend, deciding to skip school and stay home. Her friend assumed she was simply not interested in attending for a short day and left without her. Around 3 p.m., Ellie's father returned from work and entered the kitchen, only to be confronted with a horrific scene. Ellie was lying face down in a large pool of blood. In shock, he initially thought she might have suffered a fall. Upon seeing more bloodstains scattered around the kitchen, Ellie's father then spotted a knife lodged in her neck, with her hand still clutching it. In shock, he immediately called for an ambulance and tried administering first aid under the operator's guidance. Tragically, Ellie showed no signs of life, and he soon realized she was gone. Paramedics arrived and confirmed her death, estimating she had been deceased for at least 4 hours. The doctor also noted multiple stab wounds on Ellie's body, mainly concentrated around her neck. Ellie's parents were devastated, unable to comprehend the brutality of the crime. When the police informed them that their daughter had been murdered, her father initially clung to the hope it was some horrible accident. The medical examination revealed more disturbing details, with 13 stab wounds and a fatal injury on her neck, making the nature of her death tragically clear. Investigators determined that the attacker may not have fully processed his actions, evident from his erratic stabbing. Defensive wounds on Ellie suggested a struggle as she attempted to protect herself from the assault. Forensic experts carefully examined the crime scene, while police began to investigate Ellie's personal life for clues. When they asked her parents if there could be anyone with a motive, only one name came to their minds: Thomas, Ellie's boyfriend, with whom her relationship had recently become strained. Her mom told the investigator that the couple started to meet her just a few months ago, and at the beginning, Ellie was very happy with it. Before that, she had never had relations, and Thomas was a great guy. He got to learn, he was in sports, and he was in a school team on rugby. Despite that, their relations started to get worse. Thomas wanted to spend his time with her almost all the time, and every day, he became more and more persistent in this question. While Ellie focused on exams and taking care of her pony, Thomas began to exhibit possessive and controlling behavior. He grew frustrated and moody if Ellie didn't spend enough time with him, calling and texting constantly, and becoming upset if she didn't reply immediately. Her parents had reservations about him as a match for Ellie. Thomas would sit in silence during visits, which they found unusual. Over time, they became increasingly concerned as his behavior seemed to worsen, creating discomfort and tension in Ellie's life. Ellie's family felt her relationship with Thomas was unlikely to last. Thomas was socially reserved, unlike Ellie, and as the relationship progressed, his behavior grew increasingly possessive. Ellie, realizing the need to focus on her studies and university dreams, decided she couldn't handle his controlling nature. Just months into dating, she began questioning the relationship and ultimately decided to end it. They met to discuss the breakup on May 2nd, the day before her life was tragically cut short. The police expanded their investigation by speaking with Ellie's friends, who shared more about her relationship with Thomas. They revealed that after Ellie expressed her decision to end things, Thomas reacted negatively, attempting to persuade her to continue the relationship. He called her frequently and pushed to meet, but Ellie declined. After the breakup, Thomas's demeanor reportedly shifted, and he posted online about the difficult days he was going through. His behavior became a point of concern for those who knew both of them. The police noted that aside from breaking up with Ellie, Thomas was going through family struggles. His father had cancer, and his aunt had recently passed. In his online post, he expressed difficulty coping and mentioned plans to consult the school psychologist. Friends who saw the post offered their support, observing his apparent distress. When questioned, these friends doubted he could hurt Ellie. Still, the police found a message from Thomas on Ellie's phone suggesting they meet that morning, prompting them to investigate further and speak directly with him. The police arrived at Thomas's house to question him about his activities that morning. He claimed that, although his mother had dropped him off at school, he was too upset to attend classes due to the recent breakup with Ellie and other family issues. Instead, after his mother left, Thomas said he went to a nearby bus stop and then returned home, where he remained for the day. On his way back, Thomas messaged his teacher, explaining he wouldn't be attending class. He claimed he spent the day at home, doing homework and resting. During the interview, he inquired about Ellie's well-being, at which point the police informed him of her death. After concluding with Thomas, the investigators interviewed his mother, leading to a surprising twist. She confirmed dropping him off at school but stated he hadn't been home afterward. This discrepancy prompted the police to question Thomas further. Thomas claimed he hid in his closet all day to avoid his mother knowing he hadn't gone to school. During questioning, officers noticed fresh scratches on him, which he explained as accidental, but investigators were skeptical. Medical experts had identified defensive wounds on Ellie, suggesting a struggle, making it plausible that Thomas's injuries occurred during the altercation. This detail added to the growing evidence against him, strengthening the police's suspicions that Thomas was likely involved in Ellie's death. Upon reviewing Thomas's smartphone data, the police found inconsistencies in his alibi. Although he claimed he stayed home, his phone disconnected from his home Wi-Fi at 10:50 a.m. and reconnected just 3 minutes later near Ellie's house, where it remained for approximately an hour. This movement directly contradicted his statement and raised further suspicion. Additionally, a relative of Ellie had noticed a man, though unidentifiable, approaching her house that morning, adding weight to the evidence that Thomas was likely involved in her tragic death. At 11:51 a.m., Thomas's phone location data showed movement back toward his home, reconnecting to his home Wi-Fi shortly afterward. The quick return raised doubts, as walking the distance in a few minutes was impossible due to the kilometers between his home and Ellie's. Reviewing surveillance footage along the route, police identified a silver Ford Focus belonging to Thomas's parents, driving between the two locations. This evidence confirmed that Thomas had driven to Ellie's house that morning, contradicting his earlier statements. The car movements closely aligned with Thomas's phone activity, and investigators determined he was likely driving. Surveillance footage showed the car leaving and returning to his home within 18 minutes, but the specific destination remained unclear from camera data. Using phone signal tracking, police identified an approximate location where Thomas had been, prompting searches for more evidence connected to Ellie's death. This mounting evidence increasingly indicated Thomas's involvement in the crime, helping to construct a more comprehensive picture of the tragic events that had unfolded. Police suspected that Thomas attempted to discard evidence in the wooded area where they found a bag containing blood-stained clothing and other items linked to the crime. This discovery led officers to question Thomas further. He claimed his clothes from that morning were in the washing machine, which police collected for forensic testing. Blood traces were found on nearly all the clothing items, significantly strengthening the case against him and adding further support to their findings, which pointed to Thomas's involvement in Ellie's tragic death. Despite Thomas's attempts to remove evidence, forensic experts retrieved Ellie's blood on his clothes and on items discarded in the woods. The analysis matched her blood, corroborating a neighbor's report of seeing a man near her house that morning. Investigators reconstructed the events. After being dropped off at school, Thomas returned home, waited until his mother left, and then went to Ellie's with a clear intention. This timeline and evidence supported the notion of premeditation, solidifying his involvement in the crime. After waiting for his mother to leave, Thomas drove to Ellie's house, where she likely let him in, assuming he wanted to talk. In the kitchen, a struggle broke out. Medical experts determined Thomas initially attempted to strangle Ellie, but she fiercely resisted, leaving him with scratch marks. When this failed, he resorted to grabbing a kitchen knife and inflicted 13 fatal stab wounds, ultimately ending her life. This brutal sequence highlighted the premeditated and violent nature of the attack. For the next hour, Thomas meticulously attempted to erase evidence from the crime scene. He collected blood-stained items into a trash bag and washed his shoes in the sink, though faint blood traces remained. He wiped his fingerprints from the knife and staged it in Ellie's hands, positioning it at her neck to make it appear as though she'd taken her own life. Thomas then disposed of these items in a nearby wooded area, intending to divert suspicion away from himself and mislead the police investigation. Investigators uncovered an unusual clue, a message sent from Ellie's phone stating she'd missed school. They concluded it was likely sent after her death, as Thomas apparently unlocked her phone with her fingerprint, sent the message himself, and then deleted other evidence. After discarding incriminating items and washing his clothes, Thomas attempted to solidify his alibi by asking a neighbor for a ride to school, hoping to create the impression that he was not involved in the tragedy. Thomas attended his remaining classes and even talked with friends, portraying a seemingly normal day. He later spoke to the school nurse, mentioning he felt overwhelmed, which led her to contact his mother. After being taken home, he posted online about the breakup and recent personal struggles, crafting what appeared to be an alibi. At that time, Ellie's body had not been discovered, but his social media posts were likely intended to divert suspicion. His calculated behavior raised further suspicion among investigators. Despite an initial denial, police compiled substantial evidence that led to Thomas's arrest. The case progressed to court, where Thomas shifted his stance, admitting to Ellie's murder but adding a twist. He claimed his visit was intended for exam preparation, suggesting the crime was unplanned. This new version added complexity to an already disturbing case. Thomas's unexpected admission and his attempt to reframe the events cast doubt on his motives, further capturing public attention in a tragic and convoluted case. In court, Thomas claimed he had no memory of key events after a supposed argument with Ellie. He vaguely recalled trying to revive her, but insisted he couldn't recall what followed. The prosecution dismissed his claims, pointing out inconsistencies with his actions and known facts. Ellie had recently ended their relationship, which her family and friends confirmed, making the idea of a study session improbable, especially since she had plans with friends. This narrative added further tension, with the prosecution pressing on premeditation and intent. The court found Thomas's claim of memory loss unconvincing, as his deliberate actions after Ellie's death suggested otherwise. Evidence showed that he spent considerable time cleaning the crime scene, positioned the weapon to look like a self-inflicted injury, and disposed of evidence to cover his tracks. Additionally, he fabricated an alibi by attending school and posting on social media. Ultimately, the court dismissed his defense and convicted him of murder in November 2019, bringing a tragic conclusion to a case that left a deep impact on Ellie's loved ones. Before sentencing, Thomas delivered a final statement asking Ellie's family for forgiveness and expressing regret. Due to his age at the time, 17, the court's decision allowed for parole eligibility after 12 years despite a life sentence. An additional 5 years were added due to the violent nature of the crime, making him potentially eligible for release by age 34, pending parole outcomes. This sentencing decision stirred controversy, as many felt it was too lenient given the premeditated nature of his actions. The sentencing of Thomas left the family and public feeling that justice had not been fully served. Many felt that the possibility of his parole after just 12 years didn't reflect the severity of the crime. Ellie's father voiced concerns that Thomas's early release could put other women at risk, believing he presented a lasting danger to society. Despite the outrage, the court's decision on his sentence stood, reflecting the legal framework based on his age and circumstances at the time of the crime. The heartbreaking case of Ellie Gould led her parents to push for legislative reforms to ensure harsher penalties for violent offenders. In 2021, they succeeded in enacting a law in Ellie's memory, allowing for sentences of up to 27 years for premeditated murder cases. Though this law couldn't be applied retroactively to Thomas's case, Ellie's parents managed to secure a court order mandating long-term therapy for him after his release, hoping it would help prevent future violent behavior. Ellie's parents honor her memory by riding horses each afternoon, a tribute to her love for riding that brings them comfort and healing. Ellie's mother has shared that this ritual helps soothe the pain of her loss, as horseback riding was Ellie's favorite hobby. If this story touched you, please leave a comment below and like the video. Thank you for watching.